Hey, good morning YouTube. Welcome back to the Gearhead Fellowship channel, where today just going to give you an update where we're at with this saga with a manual valve body. Stick around. Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. We're going to be talking about the manual valve body that I've been trying to set up for my 204-hour transmission. And I'm sorry, it's been a while since I posted because this thing has been saga. Anyhow, was hoping to have the car on the road by now and be able to show you how this thing shifted and everything like that, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So I just want to fill you in where we're at. So we built the transmission, put the full manual valve body from TCI in there. It's a constant pressure valve body. And first thing you do when you set something like this up, you want to do pressure checks on the transmission. So let me show you what I'm talking about.
Okay, so you can see the transmission up in the car. There's the pan. Might be kind of hard to make out right now, but there's the pan, there's the converter, ball pan, all that kind of stuff. And I want to call your attention right up here above the left header and above the shift selector. You can see I've got some fittings going up in the transmission. That right now is running all the way back to a handheld liquid-filled pressure gauge that I set up. Best practice to do when you set up a transmission is to go ahead and do a pressure checks on the pump before you go and put it on the road, just to make sure everything's running right. And so with the new TCI valve body, we should have been running in various gears anywhere from 90 to about 110 psi in park and in I think neutral. Reverse should have been like 250 psi or 2 to 300 as they list it, and 2 to 300 also for first, second, third, and fourth gears. Well, had some issues. Went ahead and started it up in park. I was idling up close to 200 psi. Actually, do the checks at 2,000 psi. I'm sorry, or 2,000 RPM. And I was up at about 200 psi. It started to drop down to close to about 120, 130 in park. Put it in reverse. The needle would jump up between 2 to 300. So that was good. It was right in spec. Put it in neutral, and it was still a little high, about 150 psi. And then you'd shift first, second, third, and fourth gears, and it would stay at 150 psi, which is like 50 psi low. Now, that would implicate the pump, but like the pump clearances are not right, or it's leaking by or something like that. But the problem is it's making pressure in reverse, so it doesn't make sense why it would make pressure in reverse and not in drive. So that's a problem. Went ahead and put the car in reverse and get the car still jacked up, by the way. So got the back wheels off. You know, go through park, put it in reverse, go to look at the rear hubs to see them turn, and nothing's turning. You can hear it click into gear, nothing's turning. And actually come to find out that the TCI valve body is sending pressure into the reverse circuit that's blocked off because we're dual feeding the third clutch. So didn't have reverse. Ran through the gears. First gear, the rear hubs are turning. Second gear, you can see them change speed. You can see the needle bounce. So it's like you're getting an indication it's shifting. Shift into third, and the hub stopped. And then they started again, which meant I was probably overlapping the direct clutch application and the band release. The band wasn't releasing fast enough, and it was basically clamping the outside of the direct drum and clamping the inside of the direct drum because we're dual feeding the clutch, the direct clutch, and boom, it locks the trans up for a momentary second, which is no big deal in the stands like this. But I put these tires on there, go down the road, and this thing comes at 60 miles an hour when I shift into third. It locks the rear up momentarily. That's a problem. So, not going to have that issue.
So needless to say, the full manual valve body is off the books for right now. It's kind of disappointing. I was really looking forward to having that as part of this build, but we've already put everything else into it. So we're going to make lemonade out of lemons here. The valve body's back with TCI. I'm convinced that they built that valve body for a relatively stock transmission, and if everything was set up stock in the transmission, it'd probably work. But this is obviously not a stock transmission. We've modified the hydraulic circuitry, and their valve body and separator plate won't work with that. They might come back with something, modify their setup so it works for my setup, but I'm not waiting on them. In the meantime, we're going to dig into the original valve body from the car, do some tweaks and some upgrades to that, and that'll be in the next video. And the idea is to get this thing on the road in the coming days. The drive shaft's getting made right now. It should be here in this week. I want to get the car set up this weekend so I can toss the drive shaft in there. We got to modify the exhaust so it clears the cross member. We've got to do some modification on the cross member to cut it down. But other than that, once all that stuff's in place, then it's getting a seat back in the car and taking this thing out for a test drive. So hopefully we'll be doing that pretty soon. Thanks for joining me. If you like what you're seeing, or if it's just funny for you and this is entertaining for you, so like or subscribe. Come along for the journey. This is, I keep telling myself, the enjoyable part of hot rodding. Finding out new ways to do things or ways that things don't work. At any rate, thanks for sticking around.